Bert! Get him! Yeah! Ron Babe was right.
I'm feeling spry. All right, everybody, I got to do this in one take. I got a lot of stuff to do. I just got done butchering a deer, putting it in the freezer, and we're going to do a canning party, but it'll probably be in a couple weeks from now. We're going to can a bunch of goose and a bunch of venison. So that's off my list. I got to go and clean the breezeway of the house because we're having a party. We have about one party a year at this house, and it's today, the 9th. Then I got to get up in the morning. I got to do some chores. I got to go to Watermark Brewery, talk to Justin. Then I got to head to Kalamazoo to go to the Meat Eater live show, and then to Detroit. So you're getting this on Saturday. That's the only reason this came out on Saturday, because normally I'm doing something else. And I sure as hell wouldn't be hunting today. It is blowing and raining like a mid-October day. 5 degrees. It's the nastiest. You know what? I wish the snow would have just stuck around in 30 degrees. I'd have been fine with that. All right, let's get through this. You know the title sponsor of this show is OnX. They sponsor everything we do in the outdoors, period. You can use the promo code HTP20, or you can find it on the back of a cereal carton. It doesn't really matter. But what you want to do is become an OnX Elite member. Not just because you'll get the Upland Institute at a great discount and get a bunch of free training videos from the Upland Institute. Not just that, but their OnX Elite has things for turkey hunters, bear hunters, deer hunters, fishermen. They have seminars. They have webinars. They do this literally to give you more content, to give you more reach. OnX is more than just a mapping system. It's everything. Like Gunner Kennels is everything in the dog world. When it comes to safety, durability, engineering, everything Gunner makes, show me something that's better, and I'll put you on a podcast and we can debate it. Pike Gear. I probably don't go a day without wearing something from Pike Gear. Today it's the socks. I even like their socks. Now, granted, I don't think Brent is knitting these socks in his basement, okay? But they're nice. They're a merino wool blend, and I'm telling you, you just can't beat it. Anything you want, technical gear for the upland hunter is at Pike Gear. You can use a promo code RonB15. If it's on sale, you'll have to go with the sale. But Brent will always, if you buy something and find out that you could have got it cheaper with my discount, he will always refund you your money. He told me that because it actually happened to a couple people. We got a little switched up during a Black Friday sale. So there. Boss shot shells, I know they don't go on special for Black Friday, but you cannot get a better, you can't get a better bismuth shell because theirs are copper plated and nobody else in this country can do it because it's called a patent, okay? They have the only patented copper plated bismuth shells out there. And there's no comparison, and there's actually no comparison in price. You show me just a straight bismuth, okay, not copper plated. Show me a straight bismuth that is as good as a Boss shot shell and costs less than a Boss shot shell. I challenge you again. I'll bring you on the podcast. I'll get Brandon Saricki to come on, and we will pound it into your head that you can't buy a better non-tox shell. Period. Just like Garmin around your dog's neck, in your hand, the transmitter and the TT15 series or the T20, whatever series you use, Garmin is the only name. In fact, I know people, I probably shouldn't say this, but, I mean, they might get a kick out of it, you know. I know people who have other sponsors from other collar manufacturers. And, of course, there's other ones. And I'm going to say they're okay. There's nothing wrong with them. They just they're not Garmin. And there's people who talk about their watch and their Garmin and all that stuff, and they forget sometimes that they don't have Garmin as a sponsor. Yeah. Well, we will have a New Year's Garmin giveaway coming up, okay? And that's going to be to all my patrons, and I'll get into that at the end, so don't skip. But there's only the number one collar transmitter out there. You talk to anybody who's a lion hunter, bear hunter, duck hunter, upland hunter. I don't care what you do. If they put it in planes, okay? Think about that. They don't put other brands in. Garmin goes into planes. Garmin goes into ships. And the other thing you go to is W Supply. And I just had a talk with Jason from W, and he said, Ron, I can't believe how many of your listeners get a hold of us because you tell them that we got the best customer service. And I said, did I lie? No. And you feel like you're buying it from somebody at a store who knows what they're talking about, but you buy it online and you talk with the crew at W. Hey, I got like a little, you talk with the crew from W. All right. And Walton's, I'm heading down to Walton's in January in Wichita. I'm going to do a couple of or at least a podcast down there with the crew. Hopefully make some sausage or jerky or something. This deer I've been butchering up, it got me back into like cleaning up my table and cleaning the sink in my kennel and cleaning my stainless steel top off because I really love I think I love the food processing, not the cooking so much. The butchering, the spicing, the marinating, the grinding, the slicing, and you got all those things at you get the Walton's catalog, okay? Because they know you have the meat, but you don't have what you need, or you may not have what you need. You have to get their catalog. I say it every week. You will thank me. It will sit in wherever you like to do your reading, okay? Whatever room of the house that's in. That's where your Walton's catalog is going to be there, and you're going to thumb through it day after day. You can also go online and look at O.F. Mossberg & Sons. They are American firearm manufacturing company from 1919, and you could find a gun that's going to fit your needs, especially in the small size, the youth size, the short length of pull size. They've got everything, over-unders, pumps, autos, and, of course, they make all kinds of other guns. But you have to check it out. I can't tell you how much I love my SA2. I really, really do. And I'm supposed to be getting a 940. I shot one, but I don't own one yet. I will be owning one soon. They are great auto-loader shotguns. And you know what? You know me. I shoot side-by-sides. And I'm not converted. But for waterfowl, or like when I'm at White Lake and they got me flanking and blocking and I need 3 shells, yeah, it's Mossberg all the way. My 4-wheel camper, I just got a Christmas card from 4-wheel camper. They said, thank you for being on our team. I said, thank you for joining the Hunting Dog podcast. If you haven't seen it, you haven't looked it up, it's because you're lazy and you're like, I don't have time. You will fall in love with the idea of a pop-up camper that actually is like a cap on your truck. You can put your own kennels in it. It doesn't have a kitchen in it. It's perfect. I still use it like a truck. I still use it like a cap. And when I need to take a nap, there's another rhyme. Use it like a cap, but you can take a nap. Well, being a night's sleep or a nap. It doesn't really matter. I got a meeting with Canine Athlete. They've got some new stuff coming out for the dogs. And Wilderness Athlete, of course, is the parent company. They've always got new stuff for the people. They're going to be at Pheasant Fest this year. They were there last year, and it was a big hit. Check out all the Canine Athlete products, the Wilderness Athlete products. And if you're a patron, you got a really nice discount. If you're a patron, I've told you this before, go on your homepage. We have a list of what current sponsors of ours give you discounts. And they are one of them that gives you a healthy discount to try the product. I wish I could get you a discount for Purina Pro Plan. I can't. It's kind of like Garmin. They sell it in grocery stores, farm stores, pet stores. It's MSRP. There's nothing you can do about it. But what you can do is feed your dog the best food. The best food with the most science behind it, the most research behind it, the most years. I don't know why people... I always think it's funny. I've seen my dog, Itty. She just doesn't eat. And I see people overreact to that all the time. Oh, my dog didn't eat. Doesn't like the food. There's something wrong with the food. I've never found anything wrong with Purina. I'll guarantee you if you had enough money to research why your dog isn't doing this or why it isn't it's because you're not paying attention to the dog's needs. let Purina take care of that for you. I can't tell you Lion and Kugel is the sponsor of this show anymore. I can't tell you that it isn't, but I can't tell you that it is. But I can tell you that I'm going to Watermark Brewery tomorrow before I go to Kalamazoo for the Meat Eater live show. And I'm going to bring some Watermark Mexican lager. Justin Schul gave me that when we were in White Lake. That's where I met him. And I told him, I said, hey, I'm going to be going down to Kalamazoo. How about I stop in and check out the brewery? So who knows? Who knows? If nothing else, they're going to sponsor me for the afternoon, and that's not bad. You know, free beers. Free beer is free beer. Upland Institute, people, it always amazes me how it comes in spurts. All of a sudden, it's hunting season, and then I think people just go like, oh, my God, I actually have to train my dog. Oh, my God, I should have bought the Upland Institute. Well, between Patreon patrons and Onyx Elite members, that's what I'm telling you. Those two things are your best deal. But if you're not either, and I understand, and you just want to train your dog, you know you got a pup coming, get it now. Watch it over the winter. Memorize it. It's 4 hours of content that is completely cohesive on how to get your dog from a puppy to a finished gun dog, if that's where you want to go with it. You could also check out Behind the Dog films that we just released, I believe, the first episode of our Weimaraner. Okay, the one we did with Cam Rice. I think we just released that on YouTube. Go to the Hunting Dog Podcast YouTube channel. Like it, subscribe to it. You know what I'm talking about. You just got to do it. And Patreon. I had a Zoom room Thursday night. We opened it up to people who follow me on Patreon, but they're not Patreon patrons. I don't know if any of them jumped in or not. It seemed like mostly the usual faces. We had a 3-hour conversation. It ended up with a little bit of a foggy head in the morning, but it's always fun. We do that once a month, at least once a month, but especially in the wintertime, it's going to be once a month. And there's a lot of other benefits to being a Patreon patron. On top of it, if you go to the second tier called Hunting Dog Talk, okay, once a month, I am going to release more of what I'm calling the biography of dogs. It's a rundown, off the cuff discuss. It's like me. It's like an audio book about the dogs I've had. I'm on my second one. I'm recording it next week. It'll be for December, and it's honest and truthful, and it's how I got into my dog, my second dog, my third dog, the mistakes I made with all of them, the litters it's pretty cool. And only get that if you're a Patreon Hunting Dog Talk level patron. But, you don't have to do anything else besides listen to the show, because this episode is going to cover everything from soup to nuts. I met Jennifer Broome when I was in the UP. We had conversed a lot in the month prior, meeting this, knowing I was going to meet them up in the UP, her and Mike Lardy. She jumped in on the podcast I did with Mike. Everybody loved that one, and I think you're going to love this one even more, because I just kind of hit her up with those questions I get the most, from gun intro, bird intro, water intro, behavior, tie-out stake. She calls it the patience line. I'm like, great. It teaches the dog patience. It teaches the dog self-control. It teaches the dog impulse control. I like the word, though. Put your dog on the patience line. Almost feels like a little timeout, doesn't it? And it should be a timeout. Anyway, Jennifer and I go on and on and on. I think it's damn near 2 hours, but there's not a piece of it that you won't enjoy. All right? You guys have a great week. I hope I see some of you in Kalamazoo or in Detroit. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be at the meet and greet. I'll be on the stage. I'll be in the trivia game, and I'll be having fun. And I'm sure you will be too, except I'm going to have to get in the house and go to my 1-year-old granddaughter's birthday party, which, that's what you do these days. 1-year-old. Wee! Can't wait. She actually took 3 steps this morning, though. It is a little exciting. Go, Parker. Happy birthday, Parker.
Go hard on this. You understand now, everything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, Jennifer.
Yeah, I think so.
Hey, everybody. I am on a Zoom call with a new friend of mine that I made this year. Her name is Jennifer Broome. And we chatted a lot last year when she was on her sojourn across the country, her solo sojourn with her charcuterie board and her dog truck. And I've only met 3 women that do what you do. Now, I know, women to men in the hunting space and in the training space, it's probably 10%, right? Everybody says it's about 10%. Well, there isn't 10% of the women that do this to do what you do.
Yeah.
But you already know that. And we'll dive into a little bit of some of the travels and stuff. But first, because you'll do a much better job of introducing your kennel and everything you do, give everybody a little, Reader's Digest version of Jennifer Broome and her training.
Sure. Super great to be here. I'm honored, and thank you so much. I am going into over 30 years of being a professional dog trainer, and I absolutely love what I do. I opened my kennel here in Connecticut back in about 2000. Before that, I dabbled with some previous kennel that I did in Rhode Island that was my own as well. And through a lot of perseverance and hard work with my husband and myself and great teams of people supporting and around me, created quite a mecca here in Connecticut, Quinebaugh Kennels, QK dogs, we say. Quinebaug is the name of the Indian name of the region where we are, and next to the Quinebaug River, which I do a lot of hunting all along. So that's where the name Quinebaug came from.
I always meant to ask you that because just to make a complicated name,
I know. And it was so complicated. My dad could never spell it right. And we'd have to Quinebaug, Q-U, So we kind of recoined it QK. And it's just easier for people to say. So we're kind of just go as QK. But I have enjoyed, I started off really just training hunting dogs for people, particularly Labrador retrievers, which were near and dear to my heart. And it was just me often in 10 or 12 dogs. And it was a time where people would come to me to have me help them get their dogs and their puppies. And I knew them and their families. And it was this just whole relationship with them and their families and raising their dogs and hunting with their dogs and guiding. I was very fortunate that from the time that I was 8 to 10 years of age, my daddy took me hunting, waterfowl hunting along the eastern shore of Maryland. I grew up on the Barnegat Bay of New Jersey, so I hunted waterfowl and brant along the Barnegat Bay. And then when I went in my teens to apply to schools, I decided I wanted to be a wildlife biologist. So I went to University of Rhode Island, and I have my degree in wildlife biology and management. And I thought, hey, I maybe want to be a federal game warden. I want to be a biologist. I want to study game and help with management. And I quickly became pretty convinced that while I loved it, I just couldn't get enough accomplished within that system that I'd liked. We do projects, and it kind of got stuck in red tape. And so I was training dogs on the side. People saw me training my own dogs on the side, and it just started to develop into this full-time business. And today, we have this amazing facility. We've got, between my property and the kennel property, 100 acres in Connecticut. We have a 6,500 square foot building and a 2,500 square foot building. Those are indoor buildings. We've got outdoor buildings too that just has become a dog training mecca. And I'm grateful and I'm honored and I love what I do. And we're actually repositioning the business. Early in January, we'll be launching our brand new website with a lot of really fun new things. Everything from a partnership with the renowned sporting veterinarian, Dr. Janelle Appel, who's a good friend of mine. And she came here to do some seminar last year. She's going to be doing seminars at QK for 2024. We've got some really fun seminars from tracking dogs to helping to first aid in the field, Rick Smith seminars, and hopefully Pat Burns will be joining us also right before the Nationals, right around Dr. Janelle Appel. So a lot of fun things as I transition into this next phase with QK of just taking things to a different, higher level of just not boarding dogs and training every dogs, but getting just into more specialized training programs. So it's been fun. It's been a wonderful journey.
I mean, I'm picturing in my head, first of all, that I got to know when those people are coming out there because I got to meet them all at the meet and greet in St. Louis. So I hope I'm invited to come out and audit this thing.
I would be honored to have you to come out and audit, because we just
Um,
have some really fun things. And Janelle and Ray Vogt and
Yeah.
Pat Burns and Robin will all be here because it's the week before the Retriever National Amateur in Maine. And I have for several years gone out to the different Retriever Nationals and helped Dr. Janelle with on-site treatment of the retrievers during the Nationals. So I've volunteered as a thrower at the Nationals, and I've helped Dr. Janelle with the hands-on. So I've committed for the whole week to helping her with the hands-on, and it's
Wow.
just so much fun. It's such a great learning opportunity to
What
study the dogs.
size class can you take for something like that? Because I can tell
Sure.
people firsthand. I listened to her for a couple days in St. Louis,
Mhm.
and she mesmerizes me when
Yeah,
you.
she's cutting edge, great
And I
stuff.
don't mean like with verbiage, just it all makes sense, like to a layman, what she's doing.
Yeah.
And just from like dog exam to the gait exams, and I mean, so
Yeah.
for one thing, anybody who loves this stuff, like, are you going to be able to have 20 people there? Because at some point it's too much. And
Yeah, I know.
thought?
So we're probably going to have 10 to maybe 12 actual dog handler teams over the course of 3 days. Last year we offered it, and I think we did 10, but it was a 1-day seminar, and it was definitely squeezed in. So now we're looking to do a progression with 10 to 12 dogs and really incorporate even more variety, because what Dr. J is just so phenomenal is she'll take each dog as an individual. She'll do a gait analysis.
Mhm.
She'll then do the hands-on exam, and based on her findings and also past issues with the dog, present and future goals, she will help you create a specific program for the dogs. Now, again, I've known her now for 15 years. I get to work with her down in Florida. I was around her when she very first got on the scene down in Florida. And we've done a lot of fun stuff together between exercise programs with the fitness equipment and the Beco bands and roading dogs and stuff like that. And we've integrated her stuff into our program. So our partnership moving forward, which is really neat, is that at QK, we ultimately want to be a boarding rehabilitation opportunity for people whose dogs are going in for ACL surgery, who need pre-surgical care, post-surgical care for fitness and rehabilitation. Because at QK, we have an underwater treadmill, which is a pretty big deal. It's a high-end, very expensive piece of equipment that takes up a lot of room. It costs a lot to run it, and it's basically a water treadmill that helps dogs with rehabilitation and fitness and stuff. We're building a team to help support her programs where she can take any dog that comes to our facility, and we do basically a videotape of the dogs with a gait analysis, and we send to her, and she videos it in slow motion from side to side, front and back, and she looks at the dog. We have a brief interview process with the owner, and then moving forward, she helps us do a fitness program for that dog. And we launched it this fall, and it was like a raving success. We were able to create incredible changes with dogs for fitness training, coming back from a dog having puppies, a dog that had an injury. So moving forward, because we've got the lasers, we've got the PEMF, which is the pulsed electromagnetic field beds, we've got the equipment, and we've got the underwater treadmill. We want to be able to help our customer dogs have a resource and an area to go to drop dogs off for post-surgical care. There's not really many around.
I didn't even know if there was any around.
There are, yeah.
Well, I've seen the treadmills, at different, not at clinics. I've seen, let's say, Instagram or Facebook stuff. But yeah, I would have to imagine that is not around every corner, and probably not in every, certainly not in every state. And
I know how much it takes, because back about, oh my gosh, my dog Treat's 15 years old now. And that dog that still comes woodcock hunting with me. She had her ACL repaired, I think, when she was 7 or 8 years of age, down in Florida when I was around there for my field trial training. And through Dr. Janelle's coaching and guidance, I was able to do all the rehabilitation on my dog treat myself. Now I had this super high-end laser, I had the equipment. I want to say I did at least 2 hours a day of rehab on this dog. Everything from passive range of motion exercises to icing her to walking her to cavalettis to you name it. And it's something that takes not only an element of expertise, but it's a time management issue. It takes a lot of time. And through Dr. Janelle's coaching, I took my dog going from having a torn ACL to a super solid leg where, knock on wood, she never tore her other ACL, which is very common for most of the dogs to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, Dr. Janelle is just, so wonderful at what she does and has just really helped change the way for, I know, our retriever world, how we treat our retrievers, how we do warm-up exercises and cool down exercises. And
Yeah.
she's really in a positive way made a lot of changes. So she's awesome. And I'm so honored to have her partner up with us so that we can provide services in New England.
Oh, that's going to be, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know how many, like I said, you say you're going to have like paired up, people with dogs. You're not looking for everybody to come in here with a dog with a torn ACL. You're looking for people to come in with dogs that compete with their dogs, hunt with their dogs, but have questions and possibly a little hitch in the giddy up, right?
Yeah. So it was wonderful because when we hosted her, I think it was July this past year. It was in the summertime. We had everything from a dog that had just had puppies and wanted to get back into competing for AKC. She was at her master hunt level.
Mm-hmm.
We had several retrievers who were competing in the field trial world or open all age, but who had lameness issues and who had strength issues. And we had young dogs. We had a variety. We had dogs that had nothing wrong with them, that the owners just wanted to say, hey, what do you see that could be a weak link in this dog? Whether it's too heavy on the fore end or whether it's a little long backed or whatever. And Dr. Janelle was able to, so the goal with her for this seminar was she basically did the hands-on exam of one side of the dog, and then she coached the owner how to do the exam on the other side, starting with the foot, the toes, the joints, the wrist, going right up the dog, so that she basically taught people how to do a self-examination so that when your dog is lame, where you can pinpoint and where to find it.
Right.
So the 3-day one that we're going to be doing upcoming this June before the Nationals, the full itinerary is to be determined. But I'm sure that we're going to delve even deeper into gait analysis with dogs, fitness level with dogs, what to do, what not to do. And, as you know, any moment spent around her is just wonderful learning opportunities.
Yeah. No, that I'm excited for June to get here. And I got things to do between now and June that I don't want to.
Oh no! Am I going to have to hook that beast of a camper up? You're going to be parked outside of my barn. I'm like, oh God, Ron's here.
I've got my 4-wheel camper on the back.
No, I know.
All I need is a little shower every other day or so.
Yeah, man. You could plug right out here at the barn.
I'll go into therapy. Treadmill, the water treadmill.
There you go. Yeah.
A bar of soap. I'll be good. I just put a little thing on the door, occupied, and let me go in there and clean up, and then we're back on to the next day. I'm excited.
Yeah. No, I'll be cold hosing you outside to clean you off. We need dogs clean in there, and no pooping in the underwater treadmill.
You've seen the way I walk. Now, part of that is a birth defect in my spine, but it has gotten. When I was a teenager, you wouldn't be able to tell.
Well,
and people see me walking, like, boy, how you feeling? I'm fine. Well, what do you mean? You look like you
look like crap.
You look like crap. I walk like Groucho Marx and Foghorn Leghorn, But I'm going to see if she can do a gait analysis on me.
Yeah, I know.
She does.
Every time, I have such a bad leg from a horse wreck, and I walk crooked and I deal with all that else all the time. So when I run dogs out for her, that's one of my specialties, because she's so used to having me be able to keep a dog really straight and moving and run it out and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, don't look at me. I'm like a grade 3 out of a 5 lameness, just look at the dog. Yeah, it is what it is.
I want to do because of training questions are, we could go down this, talk about everything we've bet and everything we've done in a little bit of time we've known each other. But I've got a bunch of questions I've pulled from people that write in. Justin McGrail does question and answer episodes with me about once a year or so. And people never get tired of the subjects. And there's always there's always I'm going to say dozens. There's always a few ways to skin a cat. I think they all have similarities and they all have, common veins. But these are the questions I get constantly. Besides, hey, Ron, I'm thinking of a Vizsla, a Drahthaar, or a Cocker. I get that.
Sure.
Oh,
Sure.
could you try to narrow it down to something, a wire hair, a short hair, and but I'm going to leave all those questions off. But the ones I get and the ones people love to hear, because you've trained retrieving dogs, flushing, and retrievers and flushers are like the same. But when I say flushers, I mean more Cockers and, Springers and
Absolutely. That's what I kind of consider too. Yep.
right. And of course the lab is a flushing dog, but we think of it as a retriever specialist. But I want to give you some of the things. You don't have to go on forever with them, but the questions I get in nauseam. Sure. It's just like, so Burden, I got a new puppy, right? He's 8, 10, 12 weeks old, whatever he is, or she is. Bird and gun intro. I know you can't put a date on it, but just some guy, what does Jennifer do?
Sure. Yeah. Love to share this stuff.
Yeah.
So, no two dogs are alike.
Cool.
They all have their individual personalities. So what does Jennifer do? Understand that I have some specific dogs of my own, if I'm raising my own dog and I don't have a time frame on it, that often becomes the looming cloud factor when a customer sends you a dog, is there's a time frame on it. They like it. How quick can you get them done? When can you get it done?
Right.
And not only a lack of a looming time frame, but also a specific goal with me of knowing that I want to compete, particularly at high levels with my dogs. I might have that category.
Right.
Versus my most popular client, which is my everyday customer, who anything from adopted a dog, bought a backyard dog, adopted a dog at a shelter, or went to a backyard breeder, or even bought a high-level dog, right, from a good breeding program. They, first and foremost, they're mostly family pets, and then they could be their weekend warriors, even for people that are hardcore hunters. So sure. What I really like to do is I'll start with a puppy initially, and I work it through some leash exercises. I want to see a little bit of the character of that puppy. I want to form a little bit of a relationship with that puppy, but I'll go ahead and put that puppy on a lightweight, long line check cord, lightweight, because I don't want it to really affect them much.
Right.
And I like to take a live bird and do a teasing drill to see what the prey drive is in this particular dog. Now, I don't care if it's a pointing dog or a flushing dog or a retriever. Right. What I'm doing is what's in there for the inner beast, what's the catch kill. I want to chase carnal. I want to grab this thing and eat it, right?
Or it didn't turn on yet even. You want to know that, right? I
do, right? I have never been of the mindset that while my dogs are eating, I'm going to clank pans together. Okay. It doesn't mean, just yesterday, Jason and I were down in our dog room and I was vacuuming and we were making noise and we were cleaning. We live our lives around our dogs, but I'm not going to associate feeding time or something positive with clanging pots together. And one of the things I say is, Ron, you and I are shooters and we're not afraid of gunshot, but if right now somebody snuck up behind you and shot a shotgun, you would piss your pants and jump out of your seat, even if you were outside sitting at a picnic table, because it's the element of surprise, right? So one thing is I'm never looking to do to surprise an animal, because a lot of people do this. They'll make a noise and then they'll see what the dog's reaction is to it. So, and this is coming like inside. So let's say people say, I want to see if my dog's noise sensitive. So they'll make a noise. Well, of course your dog's going to look up and react. Now you can be the one with the reins to create the problem when you go, oh my God, he looked at me. Well, of course he did. You surprised him. So one of the things that I like to do around any puppy as I'm working him is one is I live my life. I make noises from leaf blowers to, the tractor going by to my diesel truck starting. Like, we live our lives, but instead of doing something at a surprise level, whether it's an action or a noise, and then looking at the dog for the reaction, you're almost putting that puppy in the leadership role to see, well, how does he react? Because how he reacts is now going to determine how I'm going to react. I don't do it that way. So if I had a puppy walking around my little room right now, I might just do a cadence of clapping. Cadence, okay?
Right.
Once is a surprise, multiple times is a cadence, they become conditioned to it, okay? So I go back to that puppy that I have on a check cord in the field, and I put a live bird out. I like to put a live bird. When people are like, oh, I throw a dead bird, I'm like, well, I'm enjoying my nice New Holland beer way too early in the day for me typically, but it's Ron and we're drinking together and it's 11% alcohol. And if you gave this to me and it was empty, I'd be like, well, great, you just gave me an empty beer bottle, right? I want some beer.
Right.
So to me, throwing a dead bird to a dog is like giving me an empty beer bottle. Like, okay, it's dead, right?
I've never heard anybody say that, but I love the analogy.
I love the analogy too, right? So I love to take a bird with animation. Now, I don't care if it's out of field trial champions, some of the best breeding. I have seen puppies see a live bird move and wheel the other way because they're just genuinely afraid. So here's what I do. And I mean, I have introduced hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of puppies of all breeds and even German Shepherds and Doodles and you name it to birds. And what I do is I put the bird on a tether. I have the puppy on a check cord. I try to have the puppy out in just a short grass field with me. If the owner's there, I can have the owner right out there with me. And I drop a bird on the ground. And depending on the size, if it's a small puppy, I'll go ahead and use a quail. And I have no problem starting with a quail. Right. But I actually prefer to use a quail or a chucker, even versus a pigeon, because a pigeon is a flight bird versus an upland bird that's a running bird. And I think a pigeon in itself can be really even scarier to young puppies. So sure. I like I like a quail or a chucker. And if I have to, I'll pull feathers out, particularly of a chucker, pull primary feathers out. But I have that bird tethered and I throw it on the ground. And now I play cat and mouse. And all I do is pull it away from the puppy. And I deny the puppy. And I just start moving away and pull and move away and pull. And I'll tell you what, the puppies almost can't help themselves to chase. A lot of times people will take a bird and throw it to a puppy and expect them to want to get it. And that's where the puppy gets like reactive, like, oh, they get a little bit afraid. But I can't even tell you the amount of puppies that I've done this with successfully where they seem like they were maybe a little bit wimpy. And you put this bird down and you just are like, you know what, I'm just going to start pulling this bird away and it's going to be flapping, flapping, flapping. And the more the puppy initially tries to chase it, the more I withhold the ability for them to get it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, my ultimate goal typically with a bird introduction for a puppy, my ultimate goal is that they willingly grab it, pick it up and carry it. Because if I got that, I'm like, oh, that's the foundation that I need. Right.
But it isn't going to happen by just throwing it in its face.
It's not. It's not.
Right.
And if you don't have it tethered, it often runs off. And if the puppy at any point wants to bail out or something, if you don't have control of the bird, I want control of the bird because I want to be able to wheel that bird up in the air or wheel it away. And I make it such a cat and mouse game of wheeling the bird away that the puppy then starts to almost get pissed off and get frustrated. And now all they want to do is pounce on the bird. Right. And they ultimately pounce on the bird and they might not know what to do. So I'll pull the bird away again. But I literally take a bird and I tease the puppy with it. So rarely do I get a puppy that is like, oh my God, and they bolt away from it. But it does happen. And it could be even a great breeding dog that it happens. That just shows me that puppy is probably not socialized and desensitized enough to life in general. And it just needs a little more maturity. It's certainly not going to fail out of a program with me. It just needs some more. And I might ultimately take that puppy back again with another puppy at the power of the pack. Like you're going into a bar fight with your best buds.
Right.
And even when I raise litter of puppies, I'll take a quail and throw it right in the whelping box. And it's like, boom, they're all on it. I mean, I don't let them eat it and stuff like that, but it's just that power of the pack. So, so often this puppy will just start really chasing. If they hover over it and they just start pulling feathers out, which is really common, or trying to eat the bird, totally normal, totally common. Because I have control of the bird, I can whip it up out of their mouths. I can pull it away. Often what a young puppy finally does is they just grab it and they start picking it up and carrying it all around, and it becomes theirs. And I let them play a possession game. I'm like, oh, you know what I only wanted to accomplish? I wanted you to be excited about a bird. I wanted you to chase, and I wanted you to pick it up. I don't expect you to bring it to me. It's your prize. But
Right.
I won. I won because you're carrying that bird around. So that is how I most like to introduce all young puppies, despite their breed, to a bird initially. Now,
Right.
when it comes to flushing dogs and retrieving dogs, I'll go ahead and keep letting them do that some to pounce and chase and grab and hold. But, I don't want to start screwing up my pointing dogs thinking that they can pounce on all these birds and carry them around. I just want to see that initial nurture drive.
Right.
And when I see that, then I know I've got something to work with. Now, what do I do? Well, we've got our patience line, the old fashioned chain gang. I
Sure.
really I recoin it the patience line because to me it defines it. I'm not trying to do politically correct or anything. I'm utilizing it as a tool for patience. I'm utilizing it as a tool for training. There's a whole bunch of things I do with. So we could have 30 dogs along our gun dog line for patience. I might be 40 yards out in the field working another dog, working it on birds, working it on bumper retriever work, and we'll do just light starter pistol work. So now the puppy's hearing that noise from a distance. That's a
Right.
great way to do it. I just like them to be exposed to the noise and hearing it in a positive situation, never a one shot and scare them, because that's where you mess them up. You really, really do.
Yeah.
So when I relate that over to the field, let's say like a true bird introduction with gun introduction. Once I have the prey drive, I'm usually not in a burning rush to start shooting over this puppy. So if I did a bird introduction anywhere between 8 and 16 weeks, so you're talking 2 to 4 months, and they showed a bird introduction, why would I be in a rush to actually shoot over this dog when that is not my MO? My MO is mold and shape behaviors to create a brave, socialized pup with manners, stuff like that.
Right.
And then when they start to hit the 4 or 5 month marker, I would take that puppy out to our woodland trails, throw maybe I have a recall, maybe the puppy's on a check cord. I throw the same bird out. I let them go chase. Now when they're in the chase mode, I take just a light 22, face it in the opposite direction, and I usually do a cadence of 3 to 5 shots. Boom, 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 boom. It's usually a total non-issue because you do it at a distance of 20, 30, 40 yards when the pup is chasing something that was already previously introduced to and it loves, and it's a non-issue because maybe they also heard it out in the field. I just am not of the mindset of clanking pans. I'm not in the mindset of taking them to a shooting preserve and, because I don't want to surprise a puppy with noise.
Right.
I just don't.
To that point, 2 things you said. One thing, the dead bird, I got to go back to because our training grounds, it's more of a social Wednesday night thing, but we do get enough new people come in. And if I could tell you once, it's been 100 times, new person comes, we tell them, well, don't bring your dog till they get their shots and everything.
Mhm.
Of course, they show up. How many people? That's why there's trainers like you, because people get a dog and they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And some wise person who's been there a whole 3 years goes, has your dog seen a bird yet? And the person's like, no, I just got this dog, right? And they go, oh, I just shot this one. And they throw it down on the ground and the dog looks at it.
It's horrified.
It's horrified.
Yeah.
And not only, now sure, there's some of them that just pick it up and oh,
I know, there are.
But to that dog who doesn't pick it up, here's where I think the damage can come in. The owner already feels like, there's something wrong with my dog.
They label the dog. They label
Yeah.
it
And
for
it's like-
for not going after an empty beer bottle.
right. And then with the shooting now, I don't know if you follow Meat Eater or any of those podcasts or the television show. I had Ryan Callahan on one time, and he's taken his labs to shooting preserves, right? But and he does it from a distance, and then he gets them closer. He's desensitizing them to noise for sure, but it's not associated with anything yet. That's not a guaranteed way to let that dog find a bird and then say, "Oh yeah, he's been around shooting." You could still surprise this dog.
Oh yes, you could.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and true gun shyness is created. It is so human manufactured. It really is. It's human manufactured.
yeah, I think a dog, if there was such a thing as a dog that was like, if you knew it was going to be gun shy for some reason, like, okay, it's got a spot on its ear, its mom was gun shy, whatever that scenario would be. That dog would also probably have to be just an unstable dog that's probably not suitable for anything.
You're
right?
totally right. You're totally right.
I mean, it's
So, if you get a dog that's just nervous around noise in general, yeah,
Right.
that's a skittish dog. That's not a stable dog.
right.
So, have I made mistakes in my 30-year career of shooting too close? You betcha. But I go in with really prior preparation. Wednesday this week, my trainer and I took 3 cockers out hunting. And one was a 5-year-old very advanced dog that I was watching for a friend of mine. One was my pup, Betty Cocker, who's been on, 100 hunting expeditions at this point in her young 11 months. And this pup is just approaching 7 months of age. But I remember day one when we did the bird intro, this puppy was a fire-breathing dragon, this Cocker Spaniel puppy who was like not even quite 6 months of age. And we then had her, just like I said, we worked on the prey drive. Then she got to sit on the patient's line and just hear noises and hear gunshots, whether it's in our backwoods, whether it's in the field, whatever, and got to be intrigued by it all. And then when she got to do her bump and chase drills where she already loved birds, it became a cadence of that 22 shot. And so what I really like to do with a young dog is once they have that prey drive, and now I take them to actually off leash, go chase a bird where they can really just grab it, chase it, pummel it. In that moment of elation and super high desire, I will make it a cadence of a shot. So ultimately my goal is noise means a bird, bird means a noise. They just go hand in hand. So they look forward to the noise.
Yeah.
Right?
I'd say I think most people have like understood that nuance, but I think they kind of skip some of the early stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like somebody would say, "Oh, you haven't shot over your dog yet. Let's let it chase a bird." Well, how about let's let it chase a few birds first? Like you say, and they can make that mistake too, because they're like, "Oh yeah, I've seen people do it. As long as the dog's chasing the bird, it's okay to shoot." Not you haven't seen what the dog does chasing a bird yet. So
now in my career, it doesn't mean that I haven't had 2-month-old puppies sitting on my dog truck while I've been at a shooting preserve or guiding or whatever, and they're sitting on my truck and they've heard the noises, right? That's fine. But when I really am interested in doing that true bird introduction, the true shot introduction, to me, it really doesn't need to be before 4 months of age, because there's so much learning about life, learning about noises in general, and also just the growth and maturity that happens 4, 5, 6 months of age. There's no need to rush it. I'm not giving you a ribbon because you shot over your 3-month-old puppy.
Trust
not getting
me,
a ribbon.
those ribbons are never passed out verbally from me ever. You know.
Yeah.
So another popular one is, and I think it's kind of funny because the pointing dog world. You've messed around with NAVDA and you've been down that road and retriever trials. And I kind of got scolded by a retriever trial guy I met in Virginia. He had some technical ponds. I met the guy literally through a co-op, farmer's co-op store. And I was elated. I could go out there with my dogs to exercise them. And they just worked on Saturdays there. So I had this great grounds and all these hay fields to run in. And he came out, he wanted to see what we were doing, me and my friends. And he says, why are you letting your dogs go in the water? It's too cold.
Mhm.
So, and I've heard some Labrador people say, yeah, we don't put a dog in the water till the water.
I'd love to clarify this for you.
Well, okay. So we kind of think of it like, hey, there's no ice on the water. But so back to the gun and bird, a basic like how would you, knowing a dog's going to be working in the water, what's your water intro like? And is it breed to breed different, or is it personality to personality, or is it temperature based? You know,
It's all of the above. It's breed is taken into consideration. Age is definitely taken into consideration, and water temperature is probably the foremost.
really.
Okay.
So you're on that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And you know who I learned that from? Our good friend Mike Lardy. Mike Lardy, whether he developed this himself or who knows, it's hard to give anybody credit for anything because we all just come up with things. His rule of thumb is that unless the air temperature plus the water temperature reaches or exceeds 120, then he's not going to train in the water. And let me expand upon this.
Yeah.
So that means 60-degree air, 60-degree water. Okay. Why he makes that very bold statement. I took my dogs for a run last night at dark, and they were crashing through ice on their own to play. Okay.
Sure.
I can take them waterfowl hunting, and they might crash through the ice. On a normal hike, they might do it. When you're trying to take a high-level retriever that you ultimately want to take to the nationals, or you want to go win ribbons and put a field trial champion on it, part of their needs to do water work involve a really good water attitude, seeking the water, getting in the water, and staying in the water. Okay. And the mentality that I learned from Mike, and I mean, I'm like, this is like a religion of mine. Like, oh, you don't train a dog to the point where we have temperature. I have a temperature gauge in my ATV, and I have a temperature gauge in my truck because we'll literally, when we get down to Florida training, we might wait till 11 o'clock. All the training camps are like this. All the high-level retriever training camps are like this. They pretty much wait till the water temperature is 120 degrees, because we're not asking the dog to jump in there and pounce and frolic and play or retrieve a downed waterfowl out and back to come back into a blind. We're asking them to not cheat, get in the water early, and then do particularly a 10 to 20 minute swim. Multiple times, not 20 minutes at a time, but 10-minute swim multiple times. And cold water creates a bad attitude for ultimately an all-age retriever. So
Wow.
if you can try to, it doesn't mean you're not going to have trials. I mean, the nationals go on in November and it's snowing out and the water's going to be cold. But if you as a retriever have had an initial bad experience, you get in the water and it's cold and it's unforgiving, and you're having to, in training, swim your heart out for 18 minutes to get a rubber bumper at the end, you've just created a bad water attitude. Okay. The flip side, does that make sense?
Well, it makes sense, but I'd be the guy who did the opposite and just got lucky. And that's no way to base a training thing on, right?
I trust Mike. Mike knows a whole lot more about this stuff than you and I.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it can't be, it almost sounds like, wait a minute, am I going to really worry about the air and the water temperature? I remember taking a little wire hair pup I had, a little female, and there's a little pond out in the woods by my place. And I had a test coming up. There was no way in the world I'm going to get to wait until there's 120, 60-degree air, 60-degree water. But then, of course, I wasn't asking this dog to do real work in the water. And this dog literally jumped beyond the melted or the open water and jumped onto the ice, broke through, never bothered. It's like, she's just great, right? Later on, I had to do all the NAVDA work for search for duck and retrieve. And I thought I had this phenom. No, she had this great retrieving drill, and I probably numbed her to the bone.
You were, yeah.
But I thought, she's gonna be great. And I guess in that situation, I probably couldn't have done anything else. But that's where it also comes into waiting and not putting the age on it.
Mhm.
Who knows what that dog would have been like if I'd have waited till June.
You were forcing it to do well in an NA competition when really, what is NA in the longevity of the dog? It's great for your
Nothing.
initial title, but if
Right.
it screws up your future UT because you have a dog that
Yeah.
doesn't want to do a 10-minute duck search. And I
Mhm.
have to say, a good friend of mine that we used to train with that has one of my puppies, and I go down south for the winter, so my dogs have the luxury. It's still too cold in most of January in North Florida, South Georgia, where we train. Are you on your third already?
Yeah. Well, but
Dude!
you got to remember, yours is 3 times as strong as this Shiner Bach.
Oh man, you're good. Yeah, yeah. So, anyway, my dogs have the luxury by end of January, early February that the air temperature, the water temperature warms up to 60. So when I bring young dogs down to Florida, they get wonderful early exposures to water.
Right.
I've had clients who have had my puppies, from my litters where they either didn't get into the water at that young age, or when they were asked to go in the water, it was a negative experience. And those dogs, some of them developed a bad water attitude. And that just simply means they saw water and they was like, I'd rather run around, and I'm just not hugely fond of the water. It's valid. It's super valid.
Well, I'll tell you, that like I remember Mike said that, and I don't think it stuck in my head till you reiterated
Mhm.
it. And I've always wondered, like, well, how could that be? But it does make sense. I mean, it does make sense to have like any first exposure be not a surprise.
Yeah.
And you know what it feels like to go into cold water as a human.
Mhm.
Yes, dogs are a lot tougher than us, but it's still cold.
Yeah. I mentioned this, I believe, at the last podcast that we did, but when I was running one of my Elsie, and it might have been one of my qualifier for the invitational, but we drove out to Ohio, and it was later in the season. It was one of the last tests. We needed to get our UT pass and our prize one. And lo and behold, that morning it's like sleeting out. And I'm like, oh shoot, we got these like short hairs, and they're like not cold water loving. My particularly weren't cold water loving dogs. And not only did she have to go down an embankment to go do her duck search, she ended up doing like an 8-minute duck search where on the back of the pond, she flushed birds. The birds got up and she's like, okay, I did my job. And she got out early. Like she got out in 8 minutes because she was like, I tried, I'm done, I'm spent. It comes out and she's legit shivering.
Yeah.
And they still, they saw the persistence and perseverance of this dog. But I saw dogs that day that didn't even want to go in at all,
Yeah.
Because again, it's a whole lot different when you're sitting in a duck blind or a boat and you shoot a wild bird and it's flapping in the water. That's pretty quick. You saw it, it's visual, you go grab it, you come back again, and you can warm them up in the boat, right?
Yeah.
When you're asking a dog to independently do a 10-minute search and they're like, yeah, the water's really cold, it's a whole lot of options to get out.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody thinks about that, but
Yeah.
I remember that it sounded I don't want to say hokey. It sounded like, oh, you're thinking too much, but
I know, but again,
when that retriever guy saw us, it was my friend Matt, I think in 3 friends I made in the valley, and we wanted to go out and do some retrieves in the water, and a couple of us had young dogs, and that retriever guy like scolded us,
Yeah.
He must have been a Mike Lardy student.
Yeah. It's just that taking into account, if you wanted to try to push the envelope in, say, March or April, early season, and the dogs just, what about when you introduce a young dog to a pheasant and they get spurred? What about when you throw something and a dog like gets nailed by a barbed wire fence? There just becomes that element of the back of their mind, a little bit of fear factor.
Yeah.
And you put them in cold water and they're like, I love to retrieve, but this water is actually painful to me.
Right.
You can create an everlasting negative attitude about water. Now, again, for most of your dogs, you throw a bumper in, that's great, that's fine. We're not asking our dogs to do that. We're asking them to do 10-minute duck searches for our NAVDA dogs.
Right.
And then for the high-level field trial dogs, we're asking them to do really, really intense stuff that there's a lot of bailouts to happen, and we need to show the dog that has the most perseverance and bravery and effort is the dog that's going to win. And that's not a dog that was deterred by cold water as a baby puppy.
That is great. That's gonna go in my long-term memory for future, because I filter a lot of emails about that, and I've got to stick that one in.
Sure.
I want to talk a little bit about pointing instinct. Okay, like I said, you've messed with plenty of pointing dogs and retrieving dogs. I kind of come from the instincts don't expire, right? So when I see pointing early in a dog, it's kind of like I take it off my list. Like, okay, great, he points. He's got a strong pointing instinct. But sometimes I see people overdoing it. Like, I want to see it again. I want to see it again. I'm going to come to Wednesday night. I'm going to buy 2 more chuckers, and I want to see it again. And at some point, the launcher doesn't work. The bird doesn't fly. So if you I'm just going to paint this scenario. You got a dog that shows you good pointing. And I don't mean a flash point. I mean like a really nice point. I keep telling the people at our grounds, like, it doesn't need more birds right now. It needs other things, right? How do you feel about that? Like,
I couldn't be in agreement more. I had the honor of doing a NAVDA clinic in 2022 in Alaska for the Yukon chapter, and learning how difficult it is for them to get birds and the price of birds. I mean, I'm going to it was like $50 a pheasant, like, or
crazy.
$80 a pheasant and $50. It was just insane, right?
You're better off giving it a halibut dinner. Yeah.
Really? Yeah. And what I ultimately, when I sort of, I sent out a questionnaire, and based on people's answers, I'm like, they don't need birds. They need drills. They need to learn how to walk politely on a leash. They need to learn how to stop and be still, and WOPO stuff and point of contact stuff. So I did a birdless bird dog clinic in Alaska.
Did you
and it
really?
was a huge success. I did. It was, they wrote, Jonathan Green, who helped to host it, who's an awesome guy with poodle pointers. He wrote a follow-up article in the NAVDA magazine last year at some point about the birdless bird dog clinic. And so I do totally agree. You know, you've got this puppy that's showing this natural instinct to hold in a point. Well, it's really great until it's not. And now when they start busting, when they're at that highest level of arousal around a bird, and that drive to catch and chase, particularly when you come to your versatile dogs, which love to catch, chase, and kill, right?
Yeah.
When you start applying pressure around the bird is when you start getting the problems. You get the flagging, you get the blinking, you get it all.
Right.
And even being rougher with the birds, or not even wanting to point at all. So it's great to see that pointing instinct. But then, again, coming from my mentor and all the coachings that I've done with Rick Smith, is you start teaching them how to handle. And handle is moving with you, stopping, coming to you, moving with you, stopping, coming to you. So that becomes more of a partnership in the field. Yeah, but I'm I probably do 80% of my training not on birds and 20% on birds.
Right. And this goes back. I'm spanking my own chapter here, because I should be there after all these years. I should just have a stop sign and a whistle like a traffic cop and say, no, you are not putting your dog on 2 more birds. But we have this text stream that comes out on Sundays, and we're really lucky. We have a big chucker producer in Holland, Michigan, the home of your dragon's milk.
I know.
And I see this text string come in. Gary wants 2, Steve wants 2, Bob wants 3, John wants, and all they want to do is come out every week, even with a young dog. And I'm like, guys, you've already, how many times do you need to see your dog point? He'll point come hunting season now. And let's work on, like you said, field control, stopping, or anything besides the one thing the dog has perfect. He has, and I'm going with a dog that showed it.
Mm-hmm.
It's unmistakably good pointing. Now, there might be a dog that needs some birds to bring that out, but I'm talking about, I see more dogs, especially these days, The pointing instinct's there. The parents have been tested. The grandparents have been. We know this dog's going to point. What we don't know is this dog going to come when it's called and is going to go left when it wants to go right. Right. So
I know.
thank you.
So I go to NAVDA chapter events, and I like lose it because I'll go specifically to train my dog for a UT test, because I do so much of my training on my own. I know I've got the grounds myself, I've got the birds, but what I miss out on is the action, the people, the group of people in the field. So I go for sort of the fireworks and the chaos, right?
Right,
And
right.
man, is there chaos, because I'll put my dog on a patience line and she would just lay down and behave, and you got dogs just going batshit because it's not their turn. They're barking their heads off. They're pulling against the line, and now they're already so predisposed in such a mode of anxiety.
It's my turn. It's my turn. It's my
Yeah.
turn. Yeah.
And then so by the time you get them out in the field, they don't have a brain left because they've lost it through lack of self-discipline and control. And so, yeah, I mean, people would benefit more from doing obedience all with their dog at the line and getting them mentally right before they're going to go do birds.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's gorgeous to see a dog that has really beautiful natural talent that just locks up on a bird, boom.
Right.
But when the hiccups start to happen, when they can actually catch a bad bird that won't fly, that's when the train wrecks start, and then it just starts going all downhill. And I think it's very manufactured by us.
It is. And I'm going to blame my original parent organization, who I'm still devoted to, of this damn test, right? Mm-hmm. How many articles do you see like, I got a new pup, I can't wait to do UT, and I want to go to the Invitational? They've already got this straight line thought of where they're going, and they want to do it in the next 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And God, they're in such a hurry,
Do you know my dog was 10 years old when I ran her in the Invitational?
I did not. That's an old dog. I mean,
and so I got her Master Hunter when she was 2 years of age, my German Shorthair Elsie. She before that, she got her AKC confirmation title. She was at Westminster Dog Show, but I took her through my first dog ever through junior, senior, master AKC pointing dog tests. We cruised through junior, we cruised through senior. I'd never done it before. My first master, I watched her and her brace mate bump a bird, and had I done my starter pistol because she knew to stop, I could have saved her, but instead I just watched it happen. So we failed our first master, and then she proceeded to pass her next 5 masters. And this dog was such a learning dog for me. So when she was like 2 or 3 years of age, I then just guided with her. And I guided with her, and she was a meat hunting dog. And I would let her point a bird and break at the flush or break at the shot. I just did.
right.
And I helped a lot of customers run their dogs through NAVDA, UT, and even Invitational. And I decided when she was 7 to join NAVDA.
Oh, shit.
Okay. And so when she was 7, I joined NAVDA, and her first year of training, she got a UT. We qualified. She got her. We scored a 204. But then the next year I bred her. She had puppies, so I requalified her. So now she was like 9 years old, and I believe she was 10 when she ran. And I'll never forget, because for the field portion, our brace mate was 2 years old. Our German Shorthair brace mate.
Wow.
And I go to the judges, and Clyde Vetter was my shooter. Clyde Vetter was one of the judges. Oh gosh, I should remember his name. He's a friend of mine too. He's a trainer from Pennsylvania. Anyway, I'll think of it. He was my shooter. And I said to the judges, I said, she's 10 years old. She goes very slow and methodical. She's just very slow and methodical. That's how this dog works.
Right.
And they're like, that's okay. And the brace mate is like chomping at the bit. And we're at this like hill in front of us. And I tapped Elsie to let her go. And holy F, she kicked dirt in my face and ran over that hill like she was 2 years old. And I went, I'm effed. I'm effed. And I'm like, and we came running up over the hill, and the dogs were pointed and locked up. They were pointing and honoring. And it was one of the most epic moments of my life. Those two dogs, the bracemate didn't end up passing. She got a little loose, I believe, on her birds and her honoring. And Elsie had wild bird flushes to shot. Kyle Huff was our shooter.
Yeah, sure.
Elsie had like a wild flush and stopped to it, and Kyle shot. Like, she was brilliant, but she was like so fast during it, you know? So, but yeah, why am I saying this? Because I wouldn't want to put all my eggs in one basket to try to take a 2-year-old dog to the Invitational.
Yeah, to
There's
have
so
that be
much.
to have that be your only focus.
Yeah. Now, oh my God, for those of you with a 2-year-old dog, anything from 4 under, for those of you that have passed the Invitational with 4 and under dogs, man, huge congratulations.
Oh yeah.
But there is such an element of wiseness and maturity, and been there, done that, been exposed to it, and come up with, I mean, when you ran the Invitational, did you not have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, and even a plan F, right?
Right. Yeah, the plan F would have been get in the truck and go home. Like, you know what? I think my dog's lame. I don't think we're going to run today. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I had planned the glorious plan A in my head, you know, oh, my dog's going to run so methodical and beautiful. She's not going to care that her bracemate's 2 years of age. And there she takes off, you know? And I needed everything through plan F when I ran the Invitational. And I mean, she scored 200. And I was so grateful to have a dog with that much wiseness and experience, because we knew each other so well. Yeah. And I kind of, you know, we just knew each other so well. I commend people to have a young dog in the Invitational, because there are so many unforeseen crap that's thrown at you.
Sure. From bad fields to tall grass to things they haven't seen before. And, and tying us back into doing too much too early. And we're not saying, yeah, if the dog can pass it, great. The dog passed it, great. Okay. I don't think it's a better dog. It's just you got it done, right?
Yeah.
There was a guy, and I've probably told this story way too many times, probably not on the podcast, but on my Zoom rooms with my patrons. His name is Scott Goldman. I know he listens to some of the podcast. He came to NAVDA. I want to say his wire hair was 3 years old. He hunted it, duck hunted it in North Dakota, duck hunted it in Michigan, wild bird hunted it. And this is a guy who always had a 9-to-5 job, but really he must have read some book, or he was just a natural dog trainer, right? He took this dog, he got involved with us through a friend. And this is back in the day when you could get there was always an opening in a test. You know, you could almost, like nowadays, good luck trying to find a test, right? But Scott says, yeah, you know what? I'll try that utility test. And he says, what do we got to do? I said, well, dog's got to walk at heel. It's got to go out in a pond and look for a duck. It's got to retrieve a duck that we throw, and it's got to point birds, and it's got to be steady. He said, all right. And he walked out of there with a 204, and he goes, boy, I don't know what was so hard about this test, but he was never in a hurry from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
He hunted his dog, but he was a guy who obviously worked on impulse control, and he asked things of his dog. But asking a dog to be steady later is easier than asking for him to be steady early. You know,
yeah, because my dog Elsie, it was so funny. I went through such a transition with her at, again, from like 2 to 7 years of age, or 3 to 7 years of age, she got to break. I never had this dog sit. From like 2 to, I at one point I taught her to sit, and then I took sit out of her vocabulary and had her stand again. And then when I went back to when I blew a whistle, I wanted you to sit. Right. So, I threw a lot at her, and
she could handle it.
Great for that. Yeah, she could handle it.
Yeah.
She could handle it.
And that's like one thing I try to drive home, like, God, we can't be in a hurry. I mean, we know our human tendencies, but what are you drinking there now? What was that?
It's a little bit of Garrison Brothers bourbon.
Oh boy, this is gonna go sideways. No, but
You keep drinking your piss water, and I'm just
I
gonna keep
will.
drinking
I
good
will.
stuff, you know?
Don't say Shinerbach. Now, if it was Miller Lite, you could say that. It's Shinerbach is a great light beer from.
Shiner Bock is a great light beer.
It's right. It's right.
What are some other burning questions that people like that you feel like you keep having from people?
Um, well, when it retrieving is always like when we'll do question and answers with Justin. We've done live seminar once with Anik. There's so many questions on retrieving,
Mm-hmm.
and this can go from, the typical, my dog picks up the bird and sees me, and it spits it out. But does that go to too much retrieving, too much play retrieves when they're puppies? Or retrieving is definitely an instinct, right? Like pointing is an instinct. Some of them, like my little cocker, I am shocked by this is my second cocker. I am shocked. The first bird this dog has ever seen was retrieved to my ankles. Like,
Sure.
obviously, this is so tied in genetically to this dog. But then you get into let's say I'm sure in the lab world too, like, do we cause retrieving, or is retrieving something that's like, how do you start your retrieving drills, whether it's a flushing retriever or a pointing dog? I mean,
I am a retriever purist.
okay.
So I nurture retrieving from a youngster off the bat, even in my short hairs. So my short hairs, my cocker, my retrievers, I nurture it when they're 8 weeks old, 3 months old, 4 months old, 5 months old. But recently, because I was of the old school force fetch where I did the ear pinch,
Right.
an occasional dog, occasional in my career, I did a toe hitch. And then I went to a point where instead of ear pinch, I went right to actually e-collar overlay to teach them e-collar for fetching after I'd done their full e-collar conditioning. And now I've sort of gone back and revised in the past 2-3 years that I teach a puppy. I did it with Betty, and I did it with, I think, Philly. I did it with my two short hairs. So in the past, I don't know, 5 years now, I teach them just a hold drill with a soft paint roller at
Yep.
4 months of age. So
Yeah.
I have them carrying it, and when they drop it, I just sort of get upset with them. Oh, no, you don't do that. And I put it back in their mouth. Oh, you're so pretty. You're so good. You're so good. And I basically fetch condition all of my dogs. So no different than sit is a command and here is a command and whoa is a command. To me, fetch is a command. And when I train a dog, when I say fetch, you fetch what I directed you to fetch. You hold it securely but gently, and you politely, with a partnership, deliver it to hand. Because at some point, even your cock now, your cocker is a meat dog for you, right? You're not competing with your cocker.
Right.
Okay. I plan to compete with my cocker, but even if my cocker was one of my guide dogs, I don't want her coming back with a prize bird, flush one on her way back with them guiding, and drop what she had to go chase that. So the thing about, again, the whole fetch conditioning program is you fetch what I told you to, you deliver it to hand. You don't get to divert, right? So I train every single one of my hunting dogs to fetch and deliver to hand. That's their job.
Right.
That's their job.
And that's from so I've told a lot of people, and where this came in, my short hair and several of my wire hairs, I took them through the complete trained retrieve, which starts with hold and carry. I've only recently learned about the paint roller, a beautiful.
It's awesome.
It's a beautiful thing.
So hang on a second. Why is it a beautiful thing?
It seems like I don't have a dog that the ones I've done it with, I have not seen that immediate. It's almost like they're like, well, this isn't bad to hold. I don't
versus a wooden dowel
or a hard
so what I want to
bumper.
Exactly. And what I want to expand upon a minute, it's comfortable to hold whether you have a small paint roller or that 2-inch paint roller. And here's what it's a training tool in a moment of their time that you're never going to use again. So when there's even some negativity brought to it and you bring it around to positive, it's not like you're going to be throwing it like you throw a bumper.
Right.
So, it's a phenomenal training tool.
Right. And so what I learned when I delved into the dark side with these Bracco Italianos, we could, I hate the word soft, but there are dogs that are more temperamental, more, like, and there's dogs that old school can really, I always related to the kids that went to Catholic school and could get their knuckles wrapped by the nun, and they're fine. Right. And if you took some of the kids in my public school and wrapped their knuckles, they'd fold up. Right. Now, by the time they're all out in the working world, they're fine. But not every dog can take the knuckle wrap. Right. And I found with my first Bracco, I took her through hold and carry. And I do a very extensive, like, I step on cans. I don't change all the bumpers early. I just go, well, now with the paint roller, but even then, a softer canvas bumper.
Mm-hmm.
And I just do a lot of up and down the table, in and outdoor.
Yep.
I want this hold and carry thought. Like, he put it in my mouth. When I spit it out, he sticks it back in my mouth. And apparently when I have something in my mouth, I don't drop it till, when I do all the teasing and all the pulling. And I had several dogs that now I have took through tests, and they never went to the ear pinch, and they never went.
I don't go to ear pinch anymore.
But where I want to tie that to is because of your retriever world, will the retriever trainers, and I'm not saying that I don't want to paint them with a broad brush, are they still going to rely, because to send them on a blind retrieve, do you need to go through the ear pinch stim for that? For like a hunting dog, I don't think you have to, but
sure,
that competitive dog, can you still do it with just that positive hold?
I don't. So no, for me, no. Again, there's so many wonderful, successful ways that people train their dogs. Right. And no, if it works for you, no way is wrong. Mm-hmm. But for a high level retriever that ultimately has to be driven to fetch something because you told him to, you have to have some type of a consequence when a refusal or a bailout happens.
Right.
So how I bring in the refusal, and my friend Kevin Sheff, a retriever trainer, taught this to me, is that when my young dog would spit the bumper out, I go right to a lip pinch, and I just go out, and I basically pinch the lip into the tooth, mild discomfort, so that there's some form of doesn't feel good, roller in their mouth. So that becomes the motivating factor of why they want to hold it. And so now I don't really worry if a puppy has their puppy teeth, still, and because I'm so gentle in their mouths in the first place, but I do cause some type of a negative reinforcement when they're not doing right, and then a ton of positive when they're doing right. I then carry that over to as they progress. It's when they spit it out, I'll provide some negative reinforcement to them. And ultimately, I then overlay it to the e-collar. So that negative reinforcement with the lip becomes a little bit of e-collar pressure, light, mild e-collar stimulation, because I do need some type of negative reinforcement that when you quit, when you bail out, you're going to get a little bit of trouble. You must succeed.
Yeah, because you can't explain it to them verbally. You can't say.
You can't.
You can't say like, don't do that.
Yeah, and there has to be a consequence when they do that, because you'll start to see it as you're doing your walking fetch, your pile work, where they spit out. You're like, positive only gets you so far.
Right.
Ultimately, if you really want a reliable, and again, you know what? There's people out there who've achieved field champions on their dogs who have never fetch trained, force fetch their dogs, or master hunters, right? But what I've really learned as I've matured in a nice way as a trainer is that I've learned to use less and less pressure of shorter durations to get the job done versus a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a lot about teaching, molding, shaping, reinforcing, and then finally enforcing for a failure or a lack of effort.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And I even wonder, like, down the road, will I ever take a dog through the entire system? Because I was kind of married to that, and that was a thing 15, 20 years ago. You did it, right? You went through the whole thing. And then with that soft, I'm gonna say softer breed of dog, I was like, wow, I got it. I was lucky enough to get a lot of my dogs on film with the show. And I think in all the retrieves, I got one bird that spit out on a hot day. And those dogs all only got the hold and carry part of it. But
Sure.
it was ingrained in them. I do the same thing. I reach over their muzzle and pull their lips up against their upper teeth. They don't like it. And I'm doing it with a young dog now from that little bastard litter I had. And she hasn't even walked on the table, but in 3 nights, all I do, on the second night, I gave her that lip pressure. The third night, I put it in her mouth and she held it, and I tapped it. I said out. I gave her a biscuit and put her in a kennel. Like, I'm in no hurry, but I just can't believe it kind of all ties back into, why are we in such a hurry? It's terrible. I mean, we know that we know we got hunting season coming up, but these dogs have so, like, I think, and I think you'd agree, the breeding, the stats, the testing of dogs, you're getting as good at instincts as you can. But they don't, there's no breeding for impulse control and bad behavior. So we just got to do the obedience and curb that bad behavior stuff.
Yeah.
You don't have to ever do the things that they do naturally, retrieving and pointing. They do that naturally. I mean, in a good sense. All right, here's the next one. And this is on my scorecards in the 2 different organizations I've judged for. Cooperation and desire. Now, what I was taught was cooperation is what the dog does for you unspoken, unasked for. Like, could be retrieving, could be coming when called without a whole lot of whatever, turning in the field when you turn left and all of a sudden the dog's like, oh, I didn't know. I better get out in front of them, right? And then desire is that go, like that effort that they put into the work. I've got a dog now that I would say is a 5 cooperation and a 3 desire, right? You know what I mean? Like, I wish he had more desire, but I'm so happy with his cooperation. How do you, when you see a dog, do those 2 words come into your head, or is it just a Ron thing? Maybe speak to cooperation first. Like, how would you describe a cooperative dog if you got one in for training?
Sure. A dog that wants to please, like, I have to say, my Labrador Retriever Philly has more cooperation than desire.
Okay. Loves to
And
please you.
what's that?
Loves to please you.
And, I hear people, oh, my dog doesn't need a knee collar. This dog doesn't need a knee collar. If I raise my voice, she's like, oh, and she's a field trial bred lab out of a national champion was a very sensitive dog. She was, she's a wonderfully bred dog, but she's a little bit wimpy. And so she'd rather not fail and rather do the right thing than have a lot of drive. And it's who she is. I'd rather have a dog with a little bit more drive. But the thing is dogs that often have a lot of drive, it can overpower their level of cooperation.
Yeah, right. It overrides their common sense, if there was such a thing.
They get so driven. So, I've seen dogs that were so driven that they couldn't hear anything else. They were, but I still don't understand your exact question as far as cooperation versus drive. What is it that you're specifically?
Like, how do you define that in a dog? Like, cooperation and then desire? Is it just
sure.
This can't be a general statement because it's got to be dog to dog.
Yeah.
Like, you just said you'd rather have a little desire, a little more desire, because you're a trainer and you're like, I can work with this. I can mold that kid that went to Catholic school and can, take the nuns knuckle wrap.
I also believe that you could reel in their desire, you could diminish their desire through too much training, asking for too much cooperation. So even though you got a dog that has a high level desire, if you're so kind of anal with it in their face and in their face with training, then you can hold back some of their actual desire. So there has to be a balance there. But I also think that some dogs just genetically, you know, the greatest thing is to have a dog that has like as much desire as they do cooperation.
Right. But
it's
rare.
Usually not the case.
No.
You know, now my Cocker Spaniel, Betty, she to me right now has more cooperation than desire.
Mhm.
Once she gets on a bird, she's a fire breathing dragon. But she's like, am I doing okay? Am I doing okay? So I'm trying really hard not to micromanage her, because I'd rather have her out there doing the wrong thing, busting birds, working on desire, because she's going to be easy enough to reel in. But that's a temperament thing, and that's a pretty normal Cocker thing, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, the two that I've had, boy, I mean, all I gotta do is go, and you're, what did you need? What do you want? What do you want? Where that is not normal with a typical pointing dog, you know?
Yeah.
They do not run back to you at light speed because they thought you said something, right?
Yeah.
So to train those, when you've got this dog with, let's just say, I'm gonna call it an imbalance. You've got this high desire dog, which a lot of people get with a Weimaraner or a Shorthair or a wire hair, right? You know, the harder charging pointing dogs, or an English pointer. If we'll use English, so we don't think I know it's pointer, but if you got a high desire dog, are you just going to work more obedience with the dog in the field without all the stimulation?
The handling, the cooperation, because the desire is so strong, they just go tunnel visions to it, and they just their tolerance to pressure and pain goes through the roof. That doesn't matter. They're just such a drive to catch, chase, kill, whatever. So
with a high desire dog, it kind of, I'm going back to like the people who are getting their first dog or going to their first year of training. You got this high desire dog. We're kind of beating the horse here, but yard work, field work, handling work, come when called, because they've already got the desire. They just might not have the ear. But
then also, what has been their success ratio of getting to bust a bird, chase a bird, and catch a bird?
Yeah.
You know, and is that become a muscle memory that, you know, even I see this with high desire retrievers. They're on the mat for training, whether it's hunt test training or field trial training, and their issues of noise and lack of steadiness, and they're just so excited.
Mm-hmm.
They're willing to take a whipping, a beating, a correction, because they know that then they get to go retrieve the bird.
Right.
When in reality, if that dog as a youngster, you know, I've taken a whole different tone with my retrievers. I'm not looking to, you know, there's a lot of people who will be like, oh, look at what my 4-month-old retriever can do, a 250-yard mark. I'm like, wow, that's great. They're a train wreck on the mat, and you're teaching them to be a train wreck on the mat.
Right.
For the past 5 years, at least, my own personal dogs and dogs that I've raised for people, I've made it all about the obedience and the composure. And once they had the obedience and the patience and the composure, then I allowed them to start doing marking drills and drills from the mat. And now I have dogs that I've experienced that have much, much more composure versus, you know, where I'm going with this is you got these dogs that have really high drive, high desire. And they're like, okay, I'll sit on the mat. The birds will go off. I'm going to bark. I'm going to scream. I get a beating. I get corrected, but I still get to go to retrieve anyway. And that's just part of their lifestyle. And I don't allow that to be part of their lifestyle. But most people allow it to be part of their lifestyle, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm going to have a guest on, I think, next week, not from the hunting dog world, but he works with pet dogs with anxiety. And we had a little pre-chat this week, and I was like, Well, I think this could be really helpful for a lot of people with dogs that are going to be taken for tests. You know, that is it anxiety, or is a lack of impulse control the same thing? Because that's the one thing I've learned from Justin is I work a lot of impulse control on young dogs now, like going through the door last, waiting to be
Yeah.
all them little things. It's kind of like it's like from an early age, they're already in school a little bit, but it's not a big deal. Like
Mhm.
do a lot of early impulse control with the dogs like that, food and
Mhm.
doors and in and out of kennels.
Yeah, absolutely. I I watch people in the retriever world complain that their dog is noisy online and drags them out of the holding blind, from the holding blind to the mat. But I've never seen those people from the holding blind to the truck and before the truck actually get a dog that heals well.
Okay.
So
Oh,
they're
yeah.
basically they're anticipating and asking the dog to heal really well when it really matters, from the holding blind to the mat. And
Right.
I'm like, you can't even get your dog to heal in a non excited state of mind or a non aroused,
Yeah.
level. So I still think it's our general lack of consistent obedience. And that's what it is. Like, so yeah, Betty Cocker, she has to sit and wait for me every single time I open a door. She has to sit and wait. Whether other dogs run right by her, she has to sit and wait.
Right.
And um,
And if
it,
there's
it
a
just
dog that would love to bolt out of a door, it's a Cocker Spaniel.
the Cocker Spaniel. Yeah.
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 Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
it's you must be disciplined enough to be consistent. I learned that from Rick Smith. You must be disciplined enough to be consistent. And we all just get lax on that. We're like, it's after hours. I'm letting them out for their last outs. I just don't. I mean, it just happened to me this morning. I went to let Betty Cocker out of her run, and I was like, wanted to get to the kennel, and I was just low energy, and I opened the door and she bolted out, and I made her go back in her kennel and sit. And I was like, that's a dog trainer. You can't let your guard down, because then that becomes their muscle memory. And if you lose that lack of control in like non-excited environments, it's pretty unfair to ask it suddenly on a bird.
yeah. Way unfair. Way
Yeah.
unfair. I always tell people, like, you should have a dog that could do, like, a young dog that you almost could say, I could take it to a nursing home. I could take it to the vet. The vet enjoys my dog when it gets there.
Yeah. Our
And
veterinarians love our dogs.
right. And my vets have always given me that compliment. If I've like, sit, let's get on the scale. I've seen people that can't get their dog on the scale at the vet, right?
Yeah.
I'm
I
like,
know.
really?
Yeah.
They just don't do that early. And it's not even hard on a dog. Like Tagus, I did it with him specifically, waiting to food, putting the food in the bowl, making him wait. To this day, now he's 2, no, he's going to be 3. I'll pour his food in his kennel, and he'll go and he'll put his head down, and he looks up at me like, you didn't say
Really?
it was okay. I'm like, okay. He's like, oh, thank you. And it's
Yeah.
amazing. But then he's also the dog. I'm like, I wondered if I took a little desire out of him, but maybe it was just maybe that's the desire package I was going to get with him,
Yeah.
But I don't know if I overdid it, but I don't think if you do it right, you can overdo it. Just that good citizenship around the truck and the kennel and the yard and the house. I don't think you could.
Yeah.
I suppose you
Just
could.
be methodical, be patient, be persistent, be consistent. And it's hard.
Last one. This is a Ron asking for some training advice. Okay.
Oh, geez.
Now, besides the fact that you basically called my dog fat when we met up in the UP.
Which one was it? The Cocker?
Yeah, the Cocker.
Oh, she was fat.
Oh, she wasn't that fat. Anyway, she's been on a little bit of a diet. But
wait a minute. Why has she been on a diet?
I felt her ribs and there was a little extra, but
No, you didn't feel her ribs.
I attempted to feel the ribs.
There you go.
Anyway, so I took her out. We have a hosted hunt, and it's at a lodge, so there's just a ton of birds. And it's like flankers, drivers, blockers. It's one of those kind of hunts. It's just a ton of fun for 3 days or 4 days. Anyway, I had her on the outside of the field as I was flanking sometimes. And I might have just fooled myself, but the birds will bail out quickly, right? Before anybody can get a shot at them. And I started out just yelling at her, no. And she curled back to me. And another bird gets out, no. And then I started using the word bird with the word no. Now every time a bird bailed out of
So
range.
why were you telling her no?
Because I didn't want her to go chase that bird 100 yards.
So, okay.
Nobody shot at it. It was just a flyaway early bird. And it's so weird. In about a half a mile walk, this probably happened 7, 8 times. By the 5th time, I just started using the word no bird. And honest to God, she'd see a bird instinctively, she'd make a charge for it. And I'd say, no bird. She curled back and came right back to me. And I was like, holy cow, did I train her or did I get lucky? You know what I mean? Or was I consistent? I had an attempt to be 7 consistent times, no shot, no stimulus, I'm like, I think I might have actually got a little training in a hunting situation.
So let's redo this. What I would have instructed you to do is, instead of hollering no, because you want her to like the bird, you want her to watch the bird, you want her to be intrigued by the bird. Why? I get this all the time. Like, people, like, I'm constantly telling my puppy, no, 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 no. How about don't correct the behavior, instruct them what you'd like them to do. Imagine if you would have hollered sit.
Or come.
No,
Or
sit. Because she would have sat, you would have been practicing steady to flush, marking, and staying consistent. And then you just hit your forehead.
I know.
So it's like, I get this from customers all the time. Like, my dog goes crazy when someone comes to the door and I'm just telling them no, 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 no. Well, stop identifying the behavior and yelling at the behavior. Why don't you give them information of what to do right? How about you tell them to go lie down or sit, right? So we want her to enjoy birds. We want her to be intrigued by birds. We don't want her to know off a bird. If you would have instructed and worked and nurtured and taught sit, no matter if she was right at your side or 10 feet out, you're now nurturing steadiness, marking, and then from there, you can either tell her to come to heel or go quest or retrieve the bird.
Right.
But no is like, it's like if you did something wrong and I smacked you, the dogs don't deserve to be smacked. They deserve to be molded and shaped of what to do right, not corrected of what they did wrong.
God dang it. Now,
I know, it's so.
I would have never I never would have thought of that, because I mean, she's got a good, and I'm not doing a cocker sale here, but sit to a cocker is pretty natural, right? It's like, okay, sit.
Yeah.
I could have said, Vivi, sit. Vivi,
yes.
sit.
And knows. That's informational. It's instructional. She's not getting in trouble.
Right.
And she knows to sit. And now, because don't you want her to mark those birds?
Right. And what I made her do is turn around and not mark it. You
made the birds almost negative. No, no, no,
God. Well,
Ron, put your hand out. I'm going to smack it. No.
There you go, Pam.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was the Ron needed to get a little scolding. So, hey, let's, before we wrap this up, I know you just went to some
oh my God
foreign country.
I did.
And
holy shoot.
I saw your Instagram post. I'm like, I hate you. I don't hate you for all the traveling you do and the hunting you do, but then when someone goes overseas and gets to do something cool, I
got to share a whirlwind story. You ready for this?
Yeah. Because where'd you go? I'm saying Scotland, but
all right. So I went to 3 countries in 9 or 10 days, 6 different flights. And this was a scouting mission, a working trip for Artistry Afield, my business Artistry Afield. And I basically, very strategically, I mean, every moment was planned. I met with the partners who we are crafting these trips with so that I can go vet them, right?
Right.
So, I mean, we left Connecticut at 8:00 at night, actually Boston, Massachusetts, 8:00 at night. And in 5 hours landed in Iceland. Okay. Like easier than to go to Texas or California.
Right.
Despite the fact that everybody's like, oh, there's all the volcanoes going, like everybody's flying. We landed in Iceland and nobody gave a crap because we're like, are you worried about the volcano? And they're like, which one of the 140 volcanoes? No, we're not worried. So day one, we actually, my chief operating officer, who came with me, I wanted to do this bucket list, go ride Icelandic ponies. So we rode Icelandic ponies for like all afternoon on the black sand beaches, in Ranga, East Ranga. So that's where we were. Then we went to a lodge, and very famous salmon fishing lodge, working with an outfitter. The next morning we went after gray lag geese and pink-footed geese, and we had thousands of geese flying. And it was amazing. I took a bunch of incredible pictures. I posted it on my personal Facebook page. I posted the whole, like, if somebody wants to follow the adventures that we went on, I mean,
Yeah.
Facebook friend me if you want, Jennifer Broome, personal. But then it was also on the Artistry of Field Instagram pages. So we got to hunt those geese, which was phenomenal. And then later that day, we flew from Reykjavik to Breiðholtsburg or something, the eastern part of Iceland, to go hunt ptarmigan. And it was about one of the most soul-searching, humbling, kick-my-ass hunts I've ever done in my life. I had just come off from walking 139 miles between North Dakota and Michigan. So I felt I was pretty fit. Yeah, I was embarrassed between having to go. I basically called the ptarmigan the feathered doll sheep, because what had happened was, for 2 days we got pouring rain and the snow all receded in the lowlands, and it was only up in the mountains. So we had to climb the mountains after ptarmigan.
Yeah.
Never really got to shoot any ptarmigan because they were so high, but I climbed and climbed and climbed and climbed, and it was crazy. But I got to experience a ptarmigan hunt, and that's something that we're offering around that region. We just had really, really crap, unlucky weather.
Yeah.
From there, we flew to Scotland. Got to tour some castles where we're going to be hosting our events. Got to go to a private moors of a duke out there, and I didn't get to actually experience the driven red grouse hunts that we're doing, because that's an organized event of about 40 people.
Yeah.
But I got to do a walk-up grouse hunt, and I shot red grouse, walked up over dogs.
Nice.
Really badass dog. It was a black lab German wire hair mix, and I would have brought a puppy home with an effing heartbeat.
You know what? Two friends of mine went out and did a walk up. Actually, it was the cheaper of the two hunts, right? The walk up.
Yep.
They went about 4 years ago to Scotland, and they only did it for an afternoon or a morning. And he said the same thing. It was a wire hair lab mix.
Yeah, could have been real. Who knows? And I'm so
same, but
against those mixes. But this dog was so, I called it a plusher. I'm like, sometimes it pointed, sometimes it flushed. But you know what? It was a meat hunting dog, and it was badass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got to swat some red grouse.
I got to swat some red grouse. I got to swat a woodcock. That was phenomenal, and really enjoyed that. It was actually tough hunting, going over the moors and stepping over the heather and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was
It's kind
pretty.
of like it's like the tundra. It's not fun.
It was challenging. And then lastly, went to Ireland and got to hunt on the bogs of Ireland. Got to hunt European woodcock, which just blew me away. I mean, I swear they're twice the size of ours.
Yeah.
They remind me of this prehistoric pterodactyl when they get up. And when they get up in the woods, it sounds like a seagull trying to navigate its way through the cover, because it's just so. Our woodcock, which I'm going to hunt tomorrow, the last day of our season, and it's supposed to be in the mid 50s, and I'm sure our birds will still be around.
Still have a few woodcock hanging around?
I do. Last week I limited out on woodcock last week.
You know, you mentioned that to me, and I was like, I hope she's reading the game regulations, because ours has been closed for quite a while.
Ours is December 10th. December
Wow.
10th. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So we've still had mild enough weather. I've been following some of the satellite tags and seeing where they're going, and they're still coming down, and just knowing that our ground's not frozen. So these European woodcock, so our woodcock make, you know, when ours get up, theirs are silent, but you can hear their feathers against the trees.
Right.
Oh my God. I had so much fun. I hunted over a gamekeeper's pack of animals. Let's just leave it at that. It was a pack of from a cocker to pointing dogs, just pack of animals. And then the next day, over our guide, he had these Italian English setters that were just the old school, like set, lay down, set, and we hunted 3 at a time over for snipe, and it was phenomenal. So I had a great time wing shooting in Ireland, Iceland, and Scotland.
God, I hate you.
Ah,
I mean, I love you, but I hate you.
I know, I hear ya.
So let's tie that in now. Artistry of Field is another venture of
It is.
Jennifer's. Is it going to be like a destination guiding outfit, or is there another layer to it? I'm not. I don't.
So we're basically curating high-end trips, but there's also educational elements where there's, trips for people that just want to get into going to do some shooting and have some opportunities they might not have had.
Mhm.
But many of the curated trips are unlike any trip that's offered out there because we actually have access to Duke's properties and castles and private estates. In Iceland, we were on church grounds of 10,000 acres that no one has access to, with options to salmon fish. So, there are these kind of fun high level trips that I get to go vet out and enjoy, like I did in South Africa this year. So, stay tuned. There's wonderful things, but there's also elements in the United States that we're offering. But ultimately, we want to be able to curate trips for people who just want something really different at higher levels where it requires an element of athleticism and skilled shooting. I spent almost 30 years of my life introducing people to shooting sports, and I still mentor kids and I still will mentor people new to it, which I love it. But it's really fun to take life to the next level, to do things you never thought was possible.
Right. You're taking the people with experience to something they haven't done before.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That I'm can I audit one of those classes?
Sure can. Yeah, we can get you to come.
Love it.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to go to Scotland. I mean, everybody's got a little Irish in them, if you're in America or if you're in Chicago like I was, everybody's either German or Irish or a little bit of both. But I've seen pictures and I've been to the tundra. I've been up in the North Slope of Alaska, but I'm dying to go to Scotland someday. It's like I've got to hit that.
Scotland was so beautiful. And let me tell you, the pheasant in Scotland, we were driving and we passed a field and I was like, that was a wild turkey that looked like a pheasant. And it was huge. Now they usually release them. So like on all these moors, they have all these propagated chucker partridge and pheasants, and they'll release them early in the season. But then there's also their own little natural populations over there. But the pheasants were huge. They were tremendous. The scenery in Scotland was absolutely tremendous. The ability, the capability, the honor to shoot red grouse was phenomenal. But I have to say, the hunting for the woodcock in Ireland was awesome. It was so special. It's not something that most people can do because you can't have guns in Ireland. The police can't have guns in Ireland. So it's something that has to be highly regulated and you have to go through a proper outfitter that we use.
Yeah.
And it was so cool. Oh my God, it was so cool.
Oh God. Damn it. Well, I wish we had about 2 more hours, but
I know.
I'm sure we'll do this again. And I want to know when you have in June. I would love to come out and audit it, do a couple of interviews,
Love to have you.
let everybody know what's going on out there. And I was glad we got to meet each other this year up in the
I
UK.
know.
I got to walk you through your whole drive from Connecticut all the way to North Dakota. You called me about every 4 hours. And you were either sleeping in your truck or you were driving your truck. Like,
I know.
I even stopped for motels and I'm like, where are you sleeping? And you're like,
backseat of the truck.
I'm in the backseat of my truck.
I'm not leaving the dogs, the guns, the gear, and I have to get there. I was like 4 hours of sleep drive. Yeah.
Yeah, you are one driven person. That's all I can say.
I enjoy it.
So QK Kennels, right?
QK dogs. Yep. QK.
And you do, I mean, you've got a whole staff. You do even somebody who has a pet dog that's not a hunting dog. You guys,
Yeah, we do
you
a
guys-
lot of them.
you have your fingers on everything, and
We do.
but
yeah.
your heart's in the field though.
I love the field. I'll be out in the field tomorrow. Yep. I would have been out in the field tonight if I didn't have this, but this is a pretty day here. It was up to in the 50s today, but I hope there's some woodcock around tomorrow. I'll send you some pictures of woodcock because I'll bet you I'm going to get them. And I got a game dinner going on in another week at our house, and I'll be serving game from North Dakota, game from Michigan, and game from Connecticut.
I like I said, I hate you a little bit, but I love you more.
I love you too, sweetheart. I love
All
you
right.
so much.
All right, I'm gonna wrap this thing up. Where's my thing? Hang on a minute here.
That's a personal problem, sweetheart. I'm
No,
not
the
sure.
here it is.